This is Outside the Box, and today I'm joined by Lauren E. Miller. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on your show, Janeane.
You have a lot of insight into the inner work that people should be doing. You've been through your own personal challenges. I know you were on my radio show on KUCI. And let's start off with, what are some things you learned about yourself through some of the things you went through that have brought you to where you are now?
Great question. Great question. I really feel that, and I believe we spoke a little bit about this on the radio show, that my greatest training came when I went through two of life's top stressors at the same time, advanced cancer and divorce back in 2006. Just to give listeners that perhaps this is the first go around with me, I was diagnosed with advanced cancer, and it happened to be 1 week prior to my final divorce court date. So in less than a 2-year period of time, I experienced, and I mention it as an experience, as everything in life is an experience, of walking through divorce, double mastectomy, 16 rounds of chemo, additional year of chemo, 6 weeks of daily radiation, and 14 surgeries due to third-degree burns from my clavicle down to my midriff. I had an open wound for about a year, and during that time of taking care of the wound, no one knew that I had this wound, because I was, from the neck down wearing clothes. Okay. And it really got me thinking about how many people are actually walking around with an open wound, and you know it.
Yeah.
And yet people around you, maybe very few close friends, may know what you're going through or not. It really got me thinking about how many times our wounds, we stay stuck in our wounds and they hold us back from moving forward. This experience of actually going through two of life's top stressors at the same time, and they had the 14 surgeries were due to grafting my back onto my front. So my big joke is I don't know if I'm coming or going most days.
I love your sense of humor.
It's legit. I got my back on my front. So it's like, should I go? No, go back, forward, back.
I'd be like, can you take some of my butt and put it on my
So it's an interesting experience losing my hair. It was an interesting experience, my eyebrows and eyelashes, and just being stripped of everything that physically that I had identified with as part of me.
Yes.
And then realizing that my hair, my breasts, my eyebrows don't define me.
Sure.
And that's the definition of stress that I'll often use, is that it's the power we give, I give, you give to outside circumstance to define what you believe you're capable of handling successfully. And we have an incredible opportunity daily, because Earth School, God will send us the same lesson again if we don't pass the first time. It seems to come around again. And so my statement I'll often say is, help me to pass the test. I don't want to go through this again.
Right.
So, I start out with that because I truly believe that vulnerability is the strongest link between human beings.
Yes.
And the ability, and yet we all have our walls that we put up and our masks and facades, and really driven out of fear or the thought, am I enough? Do I measure up? And I had a lot of time to think about that during the 5 years, because the doctors were giving me 5 years. At 38 years old, I had 3 young children, 8, 10, and 12. My parents were from, you and I share the East Coast experience.
Yes.
And they came out and helped quite a bit during that time.
That's good.
However, as with any storm in life, I often have a statement with each storm, Jesus comes too. That's my statement moving through that, meaning that there is always the rose in the midst of the thorns. It's a matter of are we leading with our flesh, or better known as ego, edging God out, as people have tagged those 3 letters, EGO, or are we leading with the Spirit? And that's my podcast, edgegodin.com. Leading from the spirit or the flesh. We have that opportunity when we're walking into new situations. We have this interesting need as human beings. It's the need to know. I need to know if this is going to work out. I need to figure it out. So perhaps if you're listening into this today, you've had those thoughts lately in the midst of the corona experience. Am I going to be okay? I need to know. If I could just know, how would you answer that question? If I could, my peace will return as long as I knew what. And that will let
Nobody
us,
knows anything.
that's exactly it.
We don't know.
That's exactly it. And I remember crying one night, and I was having a conversation with my mom, and I said, I'm so afraid to start crying because I think if I start, I'll never stop. And I've got to be strong for my 3 kids during this time. And my mom just gave me the freedom to explore that. And truly, that's where our peace returns, is when we give ourselves the freedom to feel all of our emotions during this time of uncertainty without judgment,
Right.
to just allow ourselves to be where we're at without that need to figure it out in order to feel that we're safe.
Yeah.
And know that we've gone through difficult times before, and we can do it again, which is actually a neurolinguistic programming. There's lots of techniques to do that, to pull up a piece from your past where you've had similar emotions, think about that time, and then come back to the present moment. It's like the domino effect. That's right. I actually can do this.
That's where that came from. And
Yeah, I've gone through a difficult time before. Now, I had never gone through advanced cancer before. I'd never lost my hair, my breasts, my eyelashes, and all that. That was some good first school material to figure out
first school.
where my exactly. We're nurse school here, and where my attachments are, because during this time, particularly when we don't know, and that thought, I don't know, becomes very, very has arms, legs, a body, and a face, meaning it's very concrete. I don't know, and we.
But it's okay not to know.
And it's okay.
It's okay not to know. And I always tell people, we feel a lot of feelings right now, and we should feel those feelings.
Absolutely.
We're sad, we're angry, we're nervous, et cetera, fill in the blank. Because
Yes.
No one's ever gone through a pandemic.
Absolutely. It's a new experience, just like when I went through cancer. I'd never gone through cancer before. And one of the things that I do with clients is I'll ask them, when they're going through a tough time, to think about, when was the last time you had this feeling? Think back on your timeline. Then something will pop up. Oh yeah, it was like 2 years ago I had this feeling. Wasn't the same circumstance, because we're developing a filing system.
Mm-hmm.
And we have that file to say, oh yeah, Cal, when I was 17, my boyfriend was killed in a car accident, which is actually the truth. My boyfriend was killed in a car accident when I was 17. And I've gone through that shock of news, that phone call. Now this time the phone call was, you got cancer, and it's advanced. And so I was still pulling on that same resource of strength within me, which is why I like the definition. Stress is the power you give to outside circumstance. Do I give more authority to the diagnosis? Do I give more authority to me not knowing? Or do I give more authority to the strength of God within me, as well as my files from the past that proves that, wow, grace does drop in the present moment. When I start worrying about the future, need to know how things will turn out or why things happen as they did, then I'm jumping out of the grace in the moment. I remember listening to The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
And that was really timely for me. God really brought in exactly what I needed mentally to get my mental game on. And as I mentioned in the last podcast, my training physically is in martial arts. I've got a 2nd degree black belt in Taekwondo. And there was one time in particular, I was in the Colorado State Championship and I was knocked out. And I had been practicing 4 hours a day, 6 days a week for a year. So perhaps there are some listeners and viewers today that feel knocked out.
Right.
You did not ever dream that you'd be in a situation that you're in today.
Sure. And
my heart really connects to that.
Because, here we have over 40 million people out of work.
Yes.
Some want to find work remotely. They don't know how to do it. And you and I talked before we started, and I was saying how it becomes an inside job where you have to prepare
Yes.
your best self, because this is so different. People are going to be asked to do Zoom interviews, and you need to be prepared and mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually
Mhm.
ready.
Absolutely.
You know?
One of the best ways to do that is to calm the mind. I took a course one time called How to Calm the Overactive Mind.
I
So I was
like.
all excited about this course, thinking I was going to learn some more neuroscience, which I love neuroscience. How God wove us together is very fascinating because it affects our behavior and how we show up, whether we shrink back and we're scared and we're
Mm-hmm.
Gollum in the cave clinging to our ring
Mm-hmm.
of attachment, or we stand up and we're confident in a calm, confident manner, able to speak from our heart, our soul out versus the flesh. And the entire class was about sleep.
Oh.
Very interesting, because sleep is one of the biggest solutions to an overactive mind, the monkey mind. When
Mm-hmm.
you're not getting enough sleep, and there's some protocol for good sleep, one being unplugged from blue screens,
Oh, yes.
this an hour before bed. Some say 2 hours before bed, because that scrambles the brain. It actually excites the brain. So in order to relax the brain enough so that you can then fall into REM sleep and do the reparative part of sleep, which refuels the mitochondria, which are the engines to your cells, so that you can show up with your best self.
Right.
You mentioned being prepared for something different. You mentioned um, it's funny because everybody's doing work from home, and I can hear in the background my husband doing a shake right now.
Oh, don't even worry about it. I've heard
Isn't it?
dogs, cats.
Yeah, me too. I was on another call before this. There was like a birthday party going on of somebody's son, and I said that's totally fine. It's been great because I'm getting to know my clients' families
Exactly.
as they come in.
Our true selves.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I really truly see that authenticity is one of the roses in the midst of this
Isn't
time.
it? I love it.
That we're all vulnerable. We're seeing each other in each other's house or virtual backgrounds or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. We're getting to see another side of each other, which is powerful. But back to the business approach of not knowing and how do I remain calm and confident? How do I give more authority? What does that look like to give more authority to the strength of God within me, to my skill set? What does that look like? So going back to the story, when I was in the ring, I was in the ring with someone 10 years younger than I was in the Colorado State Championship. I practiced my skill set outside the ring. And this is the invitation to practice your skill set outside the ring, in your mind, your will, and your emotions. And there's lots of tools to master the mind, the will, and the emotions. And those emotions seem to drive our behavior. An emotion is your body's response to your thought life. So if you go into, let's say, an interview on Zoom,
Yes.
and you're anxious and you're worried about what will they think of me, and you peel that back a little bit, what's behind that thought? Why should you care what they think of you? Because you have something to bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we do worry a
We do.
lot
Yes.
about what other people think and how do I come across. So there's that invitation to come back to your skill set. Just as I was in the ring, I had my skill set going on in a calm, confident manner. I was trained by an 8th-degree black belt from Korea. He actually worked with the Olympic team, and his big thing was to master your emotions so that your skill set can lead you to victory. And so it's the emotions that cause that overactive mind that cause us to do behavior like being nervous. Anytime I'm nervous and anxious, or I'm frustrated because I'm not getting the outcome that I want, I'm only in the small primal brain, and I only have 3 choices, which is to fight, flight, freeze. However, when I can ask myself a question, anytime I can ask myself a question, what do I want to remember in order to resurrect a confident feeling? When did I feel confident from my past? And just to allow yourself, before you even jump on that interview, to think of a time when you did feel confident, when you did feel empowered.
Sure.
Perhaps you have a favorite presentation and you simply just close your eyes. The conscious mind doesn't know the difference between real or imagined, and play a movie from
Yeah.
your past. When was the last time you felt confident? I can close my eyes right now and I can imagine giving presentations or different times where I really knew the content and it was exciting to empower people with new information. I can bring that back up. You think about, you feel it, you drop into, remember what you were wearing even, what it looked like, sounded like, and felt like. The brain is amazing on how it has the domino effect and Shazam. You
Yes.
bring that to the present moment, and that has a profound effect on your posturing.
Yes.
Because if you believe it, other people will believe it. If you don't believe it, other people will not believe it.
You're right.
Because authenticity has energy.
I want to interject something on that. Growing up, I was a very nervous student. I could never give a presentation in my class. Very jittery, shaky, no way. I wouldn't even sing as a group with my class. I would mouth the words.
Wow.
It was ridiculous. I just was so insecure. And
Sure.
then I had a teacher that really helped me. She just believed in me, and she gave me other options to learn because I wasn't a good test taker. So I found that preparation was everything, that if I knew the material and I believed in it and I embodied it and I loved it so much, that it would just be like talking to my friends, not being graded. So when I give book talks, when I first started to, I'd get a little nervous and I think, you know this, you wrote a book, you love it. What's the problem? And so I would prepare like an athlete, my favorite blue shirt, my nails, my whatever. And I would prepare just like you would for a match. And I was so confident every time because I had prepared mentally, physically, emotionally to hit it out of the park.
That is so wonderful.
It just helped to have that mindset.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a really powerful word. You had choices. There was someone that let you know you had choices,
Yes.
that you had choices. You didn't have to stay small.
Right.
You didn't have to stay insecure. And that's what stress is. It's a limiting of options. It's that tunnel vision that happens, which is why you only have 3 reactive responses. I run, I freeze, I don't know what to do. That leads to stagnation and procrastination and all kinds of other behavior. Or I'll fight and the best part of me won't come out. Or you have, like you said, a choice. You had an option to choose a different way. So you started to gather a different skill set. You worked on what reflected your inner confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And dressing that way does reflect your certain personality too. It's moving from the inside out versus the outside in.
And I would just say for any people listening with kids to give your kids the option, that tell them they have the option in high school, in middle school, open up and tell their teachers what is the best way to represent they have comprehended something. You know what? Would you mind if I didn't take that test, but I did a poster board or a presentation or made it interactive or just something which shows you really understand the material, but maybe you're not a test taker. You know?
That's so well said. Absolutely.
Yeah.
To be able to know your strengths
Yes.
and your weaknesses as well, and to be able to ask for that option.
Right.
Open the doors for that option.
And I'll tell you, even as an adult, I remember being hired at 23 to work for a consulting firm. It was a financial services consulting firm. We did training for Chase Manhattan Bank and all these different clients.
Wonderful.
And I remember thinking, oh, I don't know how to design a workshop. I don't know what I'm doing. And then one day someone said, well, you want to try to design a game? It'll just be like an overhead thing and you could do what you want. And I did a Jeopardy game. I flew to Toronto by myself. I led the pilot. Everybody had so much fun. But my creative mindset, I was letting it stagnate unless I spoke up. So for people looking for work, do something that is definitely outside the box.
Yes.
That shows who you are, that shows you're creative and willing to take chances on things, but that you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well said. And there's another little word, a 3-letter word to add to that. I don't know how to do this yet. Just say yet. Just add yet, because yet actually has a domino effect in the brain. Yet opens the door to the possible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to do this yet, and I'm willing to figure out how. And another incredible opportunity during this time, like what you're sharing, Janeane, is really tuning into what are you good at? What are your talents? And if you're wondering, I don't know what I'm good at, choose 3 to 5 people in your circle of influence that know you and ask, hey, what do you think I'm really good at? What
Yeah.
are 3 top things that you've known me long enough that you feel is a God-given talent? I know that I know what I'm not good at, and I know what I'm good at. I've got the gift of teaching and education and training, and
Yes.
that's my space. You my son works for Goldman Sachs, and he was showing me some stuff on his computer, and I said, that's not my gift. I wouldn't even begin to play in that arena.
Mm-hmm.
This is an incredible time to really sink in. What are my strengths? And it's also important to understand your weaknesses as well,
Sure.
because those can come into play when we do have attachments. I need to have a certain outcome to know that I'm okay. When we have those attachments, our weaknesses will take center stage. And we can either cast ourselves in the drama or choose, make that choice. No, I'm not going there. I'm going to minimize that weakness and do a change behavior. Instead of this, I'm going to do this. And that's a Sherpa executive coaching tool that I've seen work. We call it Weakness Mountain, running your weakness of Weakness Mountain. You first acknowledge it. Okay, I'm not good on interviews. I lose it. I get anxious. My mouth starts to shake. They ask me a question and it's like a blank slate.
Deer in the headlights. Yeah.
Deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
Right.
That's a weakness of mine. And a behavior that you're going to see is I will literally, my posturing will start to shrink. You will see me just kind of shrink back, and my eyes will start to get shifty, and I'll lose my confidence. Then you observe where it takes place. Is that the only place that shows up? That kind of expression and behavior? Or is there other places?
Sure.
You look for it, you observe it, and then you offer a change behavior. That's the third step. What would you want to do differently? Well, I'd want to be confident, and I'd want to have my posturing to show confidence. And I want to, if I don't know the answer to something, I want to feel safe saying, I don't know the answer to that, but that's a great question, and I'll look into that. Yes. Part of what we fear is not knowing. And yet if we keep our posturing, hey, that's a great question. I don't know the answer right now, and you can be sure when we're off of this, I'm going to figure that out. Now that gives
That's a great response.
That interviewee now has a piece of you that can expand and give them a fuller model of reality of, wow, they're resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
And they're humble enough to say, I don't know that, and I'll figure it out. Now that's huge. That's even a greater exchange in an interview than trying to make up stuff you don't know.
Right.
It's okay not to know.
So
it's
true.
how you handle it in the posture that makes the difference.
I want to add to that I remember attending a lecture by somebody in radio here for an NPR station, and he was saying that he was asked to do some public speaking, and he had never done it. But he said, I decided to say yes to everything because
yes, ma'am.
someone saw something in him that he didn't realize in himself. And so he would just say yes to these different opportunities, which led to other opportunities, and it allowed him to grow.
Wow.
So I would say for people that are asked on an interview, hey, would you consider doing this? Don't necessarily negate it, because you never know.
Janeane.
Absolutely.
That's a great point. Because just as that exercise of sourcing your 3 to 5 people in your circle of influence, hey, what do you see that I do really well?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great exercise to do. We call it the perceptions exercise, because your perception of self, when you have the insecurity, especially when you've been knocked off your game, knocked out, like I was in the ring, you come back and you're really scattering. It's like a puzzle, and you dump it out on the floor, and you're trying desperately to grab pieces of yourself, and you don't know what fits with what. Ask the people around you, and then that gives you that clarity of focus, which leads to accuracy of response. Like you said, yeah, that would sound interesting.
Right. I'm not saying fake it. I'm not saying oh yeah, I can do coding, and I'll just spend the weekend trying to.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Especially coding.
Right.
Their whole
That's
course.
not my wheelhouse either.
Exactly. So again, that's what makes us so beautiful as,
Yeah.
you know, human beings. We add so much to each other's lives, and it's really knowing what's your lane.
Exactly.
What is your lane? What are you good at? In our Sherpa coaching programs, we refer to it as stay in your kitchen. What's in your kitchen? Like if you invited me over for dinner, I wouldn't go into your kitchen and start rearranging your silverware drawer or start saying, you know, Janeane, I would not put the glasses there. Let's put those over there. You'd be like, dude, this is my kitchen.
Right.
What are you doing in my kitchen? And yet so many times we'll want what other people have, and we'll jump into other people's kitchen.
True.
You got your own kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
God has blessed you with incredible skills. And perhaps the fear is driving your bus right now, and you're forgetting the skills that you're blessed with. You are very special, and you have very special gifts and talents that I don't have. And so it's a matter of figuring out what are those gifts and talents. And that's why sourcing other people and remembering, what are you accountable for in your kitchen? What do you know that you're accountable for? Well, first and foremost, I'm accountable for me. I'm accountable for my attitude, my choice of attitude. My attitude's my closest friend or worst enemy, and I get to choose it. The definition of attitude is a fixed state of mind. If everything's working out for you and you say, oh, everything's working out for me, watch what starts to happen. Nothing's working out for me.
No.
Universal quantifier, if you say nothing's working out for me, everything works out for everyone else but me. That's that inner script.
Mm-hmm.
that it's an opportunity to run up Weakness Mountain and flip that script.
Yeah. What would you say to someone who wants to start a new venture right now?
Great idea. I mean, this is, in fact, I've read some articles on that in terms of this is a real time to resurrect your creativity and things that you put on the shelf throughout time because of necessity. And we all do that in different ways. I think it's an incredible opportunity being an entrepreneur myself and coming from a family of entrepreneurs. It's an amazing opportunity to really take that pause, look inside. Again, part of that is getting a kind of a fuller model of reality of your strengths as well as your values.
Right.
What are 5 things you value? Moving forward, when you align your behavior and your career or your next professional experience with what you value most and with your gifts and talents, the joy and the happiness that results in that is because you're aligned.
Yes.
It's like a natural recalibration. Or when they say you go into nature, if you're very stressed, take your shoes off, stand in grass that doesn't have pesticides on it for 5 minutes, and reboot your homeostasis. It's inner balance. Same thing. You align with your gifts and talents and what you value to step into a new venture. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, too. That's the one thing I've learned being an entrepreneur over the last 20 some odd years. It's always identifying and adjusting. And just as you're in the ring and you got your opponent, you're always identifying and adjusting, and you're always looking for that in. You're looking for space when you're in the ring to reach your goal. You're not looking to just straight go into your goal. You're looking for the space to move closer to your goal, and to shift away from the opponent, whatever the opponent is. Many times it's between our 2 ears.
I was going to say, it's
Fear,
yourself.
doubt, and worry. Yeah. So we got the servants of fear, doubt, and worry, and we're the landlord. We give free rent to fear, doubt, and worry, serve it breakfast and bed, and can I get you anything else? And we forget we're the landlord, and we can evict.
Yes.
Anytime we can evict, and part of that is the pruning for growth to create the space for a new venture. What would it look like today to take one more step? What needs to be released? What do you want to release in order to make space for a new venture? That's a huge forward step, is to release, prune for growth, clean out the closet between your 2 ears.
Yes.
The belief system.
The negativity, et cetera, et cetera.
You've got to. I'm a gardener too. You've got to tend the soil before planting the seed. So you tend the soil first. And you got to plant the right seed too, because if I go back in my house and I planted tomato seeds, and then all of a sudden I got these huge tomato plants coming up, and I start complaining because I wanted corn. What the heck? I got corn. I wanted corn and I got tomatoes. Why? Because I planted tomato seeds.
You
So
only planted one little kernel. You expect the whole crop.
yeah, or that. I just planted one kernel. I thought that would take.
Yeah.
So again, there's so many beautiful metaphors in life, stories in life that we can apply to when it is a new season.
Mm-hmm.
There's a time under heaven for everything. The
Yes.
time to plant, the time to sow, the time to reap, the time to pause, a time to regroup, a time to let go.
Mm-hmm.
When I was bald and breastless, that was that time to let go, that my outer image was me.
Right.
Hair, I mean, I'm grateful to have it back. And it's not me.
Sure.
I remember when I was, lost it all, and I was afraid to see myself without breasts and hair and eyebrows and eyelashes. And my very wise mom, we call her the Yoda of the family,
I
she
love
said,
it.
well, there's cultures that believe that the mirror robs the soul of its true potential.
Mm.
So again,
I
that's
like that when you said that.
exterior living.
Mm-hmm.
So I covered all my mirrors for 3 days and just went inside the castle, pulled up the drawbridge. Dear God, help me to remember who I am. Help me to know what I'm not. Help me to know that I'm not the image in the mirror. That what I'm capable of doing is not based on what I see with my eyes in the exterior world and being. And then I did a lot of prayer for 3 days, and my kids still remember that. They came home and all the
They
mirrors
do.
were covered. And we talked about it. We had a worry jar, and they would write their worry in, and that's another fun thing to do during this time, is to have a family worry jar. Just have pens and paper, cut it up for the kids, just write down your worry. And then at the dinner table, just pull them out, and everyone's the coach. And so they can help each other. But then when that sheet came down, I remember being shocked at first. I still, even closing my eyes as I'm speaking to you right now, I see that image. And it's not a negative image for me anymore.
Good.
It's a very positive image. And so it's the transformation. It's a new venture.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we can apply today with business.
You bet.
It's a new venture. That was me then. This is me now. So what do you want to do? Because all things are possible if you believe.
Mm-hmm. Where can people find out more about you?
My main website is Lauren E. Miller, Lauren, L-U-R-E-N, emiller.com. And my podcast, as I mentioned, is Edge God In, not out, edgegodin.com.
Great. This has been incredible. Every time I talk to you, I learn something more about you.
Well, it's wonderful, Janeane. I'm grateful our paths have crossed. There's always a reason.
Yes, absolutely. All right, you stay well, and thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.